Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Direct, a session where we bring some of the brightest minds in supply chain and procurement and ask them the tough questions. And I will tell you, personally, I am super honored to have this guest on today. I've known him since the beginning of my career. He is someone that I have looked up to, and now it is an honor to introduce Shelley Stewart Jr. All right. For those that don't know Shelley, he's got one heck of a resume. He's a renowned corporate executive and supply chain leader with over 40 years of expertise driving global procurement strategies. So he's been at the top tier at some of the most renowned names that you know. He's been Chief Procurement Officer at DuPont. He was Senior Vice President of Operational Excellence at Tyco International. He was VP of Supply Chain of Raytheon and has 18 years of experience at United Technologies. Today, he serves as the Managing Partner of Bottom Line Advisory and applies his governance expertise across major corporations. So now he sits on corporate boards of Otis Worldwide Corporation, Contour Brands, Clean Harbors, while actively guiding the future leaders as board chair and executive leadership council and as a trustee for both Howard University and Northeastern University. It is an honor. Welcome, Shelley. Thanks for being here today.
Boy, Danielle, that was a lot, but yeah, I'm here.
Listen. We're all FOS, friends of Shelley, right? For those that know Shelley, they know that saying FOS. For those that don't know Shelley, maybe we can do a little softball. What is FOS? And how did it start?
Friend of Shelley. And that was adopted when I was chair of the ISM board. I got to know so many people. One day, one of my colleagues at ISM created these buttons with my picture and had FOS on them, and they hand them out. I actually have one behind me over here just to remind me of how funny that was. And you're definitely an FOS. So
I'm FOS.
I'm excited to be here today and to talk to you about what's going on in the supply chain procurement world.
Absolutely. And you have such a unique experience because you lived the world as operation and leader in the front lines, and now you're sitting on well-renowned boards, corporate boards, and so you get to see that. And so as somebody who sits as a board member and is a leader, how have leaders been thinking about kind of the new wave of AI?
Yeah, well, it's something that's a very relevant topic in every boardroom that I sit, and it not just in the supply chain, it's across the enterprise. So understanding AI and how it can impact the business in positive ways, also creating an AI governance framework, which I think is really important to make sure people are using it in the right way. I think, like some things that happened in my career, AI is going to revolutionize how procurement and supply chain gets done in corporations. I hark back to the days when we were doing online auctions, and at United Technologies. I was fortunate to work for Kent Britton, and he and I set out to use online auction tools, better known as free markets for you Pittsburgh folks. Later purchased by SAP and moved into their suite of tools. But I feel like AI is at that same beginning stage that is going to impact us and people in the profession in a very positive way.
And in supply chain in particular, are there any things that you're seeing around how AI is being leveraged to increase supply chain visibility? Are there things that now you're looking at those leaders going, dang, I wish I had that when I was leading supply chain teams?
Yeah, well, every corporation that I worked for, all the ones that you named, we always struggled with data. And you know that as well, right? We had a lot of data. We didn't know what to do with it. We didn't know how to use it to our advantage. I think AI is the tipping point for that opportunity to be able to quickly synthesize, analyze data, provide guidance, direction, thoughts around how you best go after your supply chain in a positive way. By the way, I think suppliers will benefit from it as well, right? Because anything big companies do, smaller companies need to be doing the same kinds of things. So I do think using it to analyze and understand the data, also using it in your negotiation as a negotiation tool, right? Applying it. And, this is at the very beginning of the AI revolution. And I think if you attend the ISM conference, I used to walk in the room where they had exhibits. There used to be 5 guys when I first started. Now, as you know, that room is full with people providing all kinds of tools. So I think I didn't attend this year, but I think that room is going to be dominated by providers with AI tools that can help make supply chain and procurement people much more efficient than they are today.
Do you think that the supply chains that we're dealing with are more volatile than before, or are we just paying more attention to these disruptions?
I think it's supply chains have been volatile for my whole career, right? If it, the crash of 2008, I mean, there are all kinds of shortages in material, COVID, now AI, I mean, and wars. So this profession isn't for the faint of heart. Okay. And so, but I do think the volume is turned up on the volatility of things that are going on in supply chains. And I think it really started during COVID, right? Many people didn't, for the longest time, I told people I was a supply chain person and people said, well, what do you do? Right? I don't have to tell anybody that anymore. Everybody knows what the supply chain is because it runs through every part of our lives, every company. As you named 3 different companies I sit on the board of, they're all in 3 different kinds of businesses. And the thing that I think is that knits them together for me is they all have complicated supply chains, right? So the supply chain is right in the middle of all businesses and how they grow or how they don't grow. So I think with AI, with pace of change, supply chains are super important. We talk about in every one of my boardrooms, we talk about supply chains often.
Yeah. For Shelley, when you would tell the stories of when you first started your career and even just kind of right now talking about how you would say you work in supply chain, people are like, what's supply chain? Or you say, I'm chief procurement officer, procurement. They're like, what is procurement? And so throughout your career, you've been able to see kind of the function overall continue to mature and now be in the center of boardroom conversations. One of those things being the pandemic that even made it mainstream, where everybody now knows what a supply chain is because we realized how critical they are to the goods and products that we all buy as consumers. And so if you could kind of talk to me a little bit about how the dynamics inside the boards have even shifted from the pandemic. How has it shifted the conversations inside boardrooms?
Yeah, I think the pandemic was probably a tipping point for some companies to recognize how important supply chains were, right? Other more industrial ones, I think, have gotten it. Pharma, they've gotten it. They've had it for a while, but I just think in some instances, the pandemic was a tipping point for people to recognize the importance of their supply chains, understanding what supply chains are, how procurement works, how you have to be ahead of it, right? What's your next thing you're going to do? You can't keep waiting, right? The availability of materials, the global, having a global supply network, right? I mean, you can't, if you're in a global company, you have to have a global supply chain network and you can't just have one supplier for any one particular category because that's going to be a failure if you do because things go wrong. And for the longest time, I've been through this career where you used to go single source, then you would outsource, then you'd bring it back in. So right now we're somewhere in the middle of all of that, right? As people start bringing things back near sourcing, right? I think there's still going to be a lot of globalization of companies. No one's going to go back totally, right? So I do think the average person in this profession has to have their head on a swivel, right? They've got to know what a real good supply chain looks like, constantly go after new suppliers, constantly adjust their supply chains. I think it's super important for people to, one, have the right skill set, two, have the right tools, and three, make the right decisions at the end of the day. And you can't do that without really, this is more of a science than it used to be. right? You used to be able to get away with, expediting some things here and there, but this is not how the world works today.
Yeah. And if you had to think about what was keeping kind of the other board members and yourself up at night, like what coaching do you give those CPOs and chief supply chain officers?
Well, I sleep pretty good, first of all, so not much
Great.
keeps me
I
up
love that.
at at night. Not anymore, at least. But I think in the boardrooms, the volatility of this world, with tariffs, no one. I mean, we didn't even talk about that I've watched people navigate this tariff regime right now very skillfully, right? But it drove a lot of extra cost. You had to decide where you're going to get your source of supplies from, given how much this country has to pay tariffs. So I think being an agile, data-driven person is what you have to be successful in this job, right? It's evolved over time, and that's why hiring data scientists to come work for supply chain and sourcing organizations is critically important, and being able to use that data, applying AI with the right tools will help you execute on whatever strategy you need. And you have to be able to see around corners in this role, right? Because there's always something headed in your direction. And the other piece of this, what I've watched in the boardrooms that I'm in, when cost gets tight, they always turn to this organization, right? What are you doing for us today? Well, I just saved you $1 million last year. That's not good enough. What are you doing today? So I think everyone in one of these roles has to always be thinking ahead. What's the next opportunity to save money? And by the way, it never stops. So if you think you're getting a pat on the back, you better get the pat on the back and keep it moving, because it's super important for you to have your next act ready and able to execute on. And I think some of the new tools and AI providing the visibility is going to really be something that creates more opportunities for people in these roles.
Yeah. I really love how you're touching on 2 points that one, we've made procurement and supply chain more strategic, which is a win, but we can't forget the things that are and what's critical to our job, which is cost management, whether that's driving cost savings or being able to mitigate cost increases. They go hand in hand. And sometimes we've had this kind of, let's say, discussion points where it's been, we want to be strategic, which is great, but you can't forget the foundation of what you are, which is protecting the bottom line and protecting margins and having the data to see around the corners. So absolutely, 100% great call out. Shelley, what gets you excited about the future? I mean, we're talking about chaos and supply chain disruptions and staying ahead of it, but what gets kind of you excited about the future of corporations, business, the way that you see it?
Well, I think I get excited around the people that are coming into supply chain these days, right? They're much more knowledgeable when they step in the door than they were years ago, right? And I think having good, capable people that are learning supply chain skills, operation skills and universities is really important. And I also think that this profession used to be more of a backroom profession. Hey, those guys downstairs, they'll help us out. We're sitting in the boardrooms at this point, right? And I can tell you, people need us. And so I'm excited about where we are as a profession from whence we came. The opportunities that we have to impact corporations, to deliver value to the company and to our shareholders is super important. And there's nobody that knows what we do better than us, right? Everybody kind of thinks they're a buyer, but this is more than buying at this point in time, right? So I think I'm excited about people that have this job in big companies, in small companies, because you can affect small companies as much as you can affect big companies, probably more, right? If you get this right. So I'm super excited about the future of supply chain management, procurement. I think you got to have plenty of chutzpah to take these jobs these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touch on something that I have to make a confession. That Friends of Shelley button isn't just because a lot of people knew Shelley. It was because Shelley has this incredible ability to raise us up as we're going through the profession. So yes, as a profession, we've kind of gone through and matured. We do have, as Shelley mentioned, seats around the table, and we are very important. But he does that with people as well. So I remember when I was first starting my career at DuPont, and I was early in my career, excited and ambitious. And I had someone like Shelley who not only advocated for me, but made sure to open opportunities to let me shine and said, "Hey, Daniela, I'm opening up the store, but you've got to deliver. You've got to execute." And that's one of the things that I'm really grateful for. So if we can take something out of this, it's that not only should we elevate the profession, but we should all elevate one another along the way, which he continues to do in his career. So publicly, I want to say thank you to you, Shelley, for everything that you've done for me. I got to work under Shelley at DuPont, and now get the privilege of picking his brain on things like Let's Talk Direct. And so, Shelley, any final words before we close off for today?
No, Daniel, thank you. I'm really excited that you're doing this. I knew you were a star the moment I set my eyes on you when you were an intern at DuPont, and I had lunch with you and convinced you to come work for us. Right. So, I mean, I get joy out of the fact that not only have I been able to help corporations, but I've been able to help people come along in their careers as well. And that's actually more joy to me than helping big companies, right? They would have figured it out without me, but bringing people along and watching them excel and blossom is a gift. So I thank you for having me today, and it's always great to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Shelley. You have a great rest of your day. And join us at
Thank
the
you.
next Let's Talk Direct.